All right, it's fight week, and Saturday marks the return of Jon Bones Jones, one of the greatest ever to compete in MMA. Jones and Ciryl Gane will compete for the UFC's vacant heavyweight title in the main event at UFC 285. Goes and I will be hosting a watch along. More about that in a sec. Aside from this official title being given out on Saturday, there's an unofficial title that's kind of at stake here. GOAT status, greatest of all time. So tell me, panel, where do you stand on this subject? Matt, it's great to have you back, like I said, so you're going to kick things off for us.
Absolutely. Glad to be back as always. But yes, to answer the question, I think Jon Jones is the GOAT currently. I mean, we're talking about just in-cage action here, not talking about all the other stuff that goes on in his life outside of it. But inside the cage, I mean, for me, he's the greatest that we've seen. The guy has just absolutely dominated pretty much everybody he's fought outside of the last, 2 or 3 fights, which have been closer, and those, deserve the appropriate criticism. But if you look back at that run that he had to the title initially, I mean, just go look at the resume. Go look at the names. Ryan Bader, Shogun, Rampage, Lyoto Machida, Rashad Evans, Vitor, Chael Sonnen, and one of the greatest fights of all time with Gus. The guy has been through the grinder of opponents, and he just goes in and shows out. He's one of those guys that, said, hey, I'm going to try to beat you where you're best at, not necessarily do what he's best at all the time and still go out there and excel. So he's one of the GOATs, man. I mean, if he's not the GOAT in your book, he should be number 2. He's just an incredible what he can do inside the cage. And now we get to see him go up for heavyweight. We've been waiting for that for so long. We finally get to see it against a very dangerous striker in Ciryl Gane. He's not going in there against like some, run-of-the-mill heavyweight who's going to try to go in there and grapple with you. Cyril's going to come in, try to take your head off, and he's going to be bouncing in and out, real quick movements. It's going to be a real unique matchup here when they get in there and mix it up. And I'm so intrigued. Like, I can't wait to see this one play out, man.
Yeah, what's funny, Matt, is with Jon Jones, we always thought, what would he look like at heavyweight? Well, hopefully he kind of looks like Ciryl Gane. I mean, he's got a hell of a test in front of him. I kind of agree with the way you put it. If he's not number 1 now, he better be number 2 coming out of this weekend. But we all have different criteria. My man, Danny Segura, is next.
Yep, I got him at number 2. So in number 1 for me is GSP. Why? Because he's got a second title, something that Jones does not. Now, Jones obviously had an amazing run. GSP has 2 losses, but he did avenge them, but he does have 2 losses. So I get the whole dilemma. I get why some people have Jones as number 1, but for me, numero uno is GSP. But as I said, the thing that I've held the thing that I've held GSP for number 1 is that second title. Well, that can change on Saturday night. If Jon Jones wins, then all of a sudden I don't have much of an argument to say that GSP is number 1, and I will have to reassess. Obviously, a lot of it is going to depend on how he wins, how he looks, also how Ciryl Gane looks as well. He could go in there injured and fight terribly. You never know. And I do think that the win that Georges St-Pierre had, he beat 8 champion who already had 8 title defense. Ciryl Gane, in this case, this is for the vacant title. So again, a lot of factors. I think I will have to see exactly what happens, how it all unfolds, how it all feels, then reassess. That's obviously keeping in mind if Jon Jones wins. But for me right now is GSP. But I do got to admit and recognize that could change on Saturday night depending on how things shake out. Undoubtedly, Jon Jones has had a stellar career, a historic career. He's a historic talent and could very well become the GOAT on Saturday.
Yeah, Graham Stewart in our chat agrees with Matt Wells. He says he's the current GOAT right now. I'm kind of with Danny. I'm with GSP, but I recognize that Saturday that could all change. So we got a best of 5 going on here, Goes. You're the tiebreaker. It's like the NBA first round here.
Yeah, man. I mean, right now, currently, I have GSP in that spot, but I think a win for Jon Jones here pretty much seals that deal. It's 2 belts and 2 divisions, and that is kind of what has kind of kept them apart for me. Remember, what GSP did was pretty tremendous because it wasn't your normal 10-pound jump, right? He went from 170 to 185. Jon Jones is kind of trumping that. He's going even further, right? He's fighting big old heavyweights. That's something that you have to respect. And for the longest time, all of Jon Jones' work was at 205. So it was just kind of like you're the GOAT at light heavyweight and you're working on everything else. GSP to me has always had that little edge on him. But if he does this, there's not going to be much to really debate here, guys. If you look at it, you look at GSP's got 2 losses. Yes, he came back and he was able to avenge those. But what do you compare that to? Jon Jones just having some close calls? I mean, he still got the W at the end of the day, and that's all that matters. That's what we're looking at, right? So one thing I do want to remind the public is even if Jon Jones comes out, wins, let's say we make him the GOAT, you have to hold on to that status, right? Because if Jon Jones turns around and loses a couple, well, now that debate, we start over again, right? Now you have 2 losses, kind of like GSP, even if it's 1 loss. I mean, this is something that constantly gets debated, but I think a win here for Jon Jones takes that spot from GSP, but currently I have GSP.
All right, fair enough. You guys smashed it. So since we have a little bit of time, I'm going to throw one more at you guys here. What if Jones moves up and kind of has a little bit of that Jones feel to how he looked against OSP? Can he get away with that and beat Ciryl Gane? No disrespect to OSP. I'd hate to pile on the guy because he just took an L, but Ciryl Gane is a proper heavyweight. Matt, back to you.
Yeah, I think so, because it's that matchup. Like I kind of said, like these are 2 strikers. Like if it was like a Curtis Blades or somebody who they're like really grinded on him and tried to get him to the mat, we're not going to see that in this one. This is going to be 2 guys trying to take each other's heads off with striking. Like, is John's chin going to hold up when Ciryl touches him? Like, that's the biggest question for me. Like, how is he going to react to that power of getting touched by like a true heavyweight who is a pinpoint accurate striker? Like, these are all questions I can't wait to see get answered, man.
Yeah, and off a 3-year layoff.
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
Danny, what do you think, man? Like, you remember the OSP fight? We all said, I don't know about that. Even DC was making faces from cage side.
Yeah, and I don't know if he'll be making faces again, since he's going to be sitting there commentating on the fight. But
Twice,
yeah, we'll see how this all looks, right? This is what makes this fight so intriguing and so interesting, right? The fact that Jon Jones is moving up to heavyweight, and there's so many questions around it. One, how is he going to look with the extra weight? How is he going to look with that style of fight that Ciryl Gane brings? Also, the long layoff, 3 years, that's a long time. Plus, he was already kind of looking a little bit questionable, a little bit human in his last performances. A lot of those were close calls. A lot of people thought he lost those, especially the Thiago Santos and Dominic Reyes one. So yeah, this fight is highly, highly intriguing. And that's why I say when we were talking about the GOAT argument, it's not a math equation. It's not, okay, he won, boom, you can insert that in there, he becomes the GOAT. We got to see how he wins, how he looks, how his opponent looked, because if Ciryl Gane goes out there and has a terrible performance, Jon Jones barely squeaks out a win like he has in his previous performances, bro, GSP finished and choked out Michael Bisping. Like, again, I think the equation math-wise would be kind of tied up, but you know, not all wins are created equal. So again, a lot of factors going into this. We'll have to see how he looks, but it's more than just winning. He's got to look impressive doing it, and I think if he does that, it'll put him over, and he'll become the GOAT, at least in my eyes.
All right, goes. Let me reward this the chat. I'm going to give you a different one. Joey from the chat room says, "Do you guys think Ciryl Gane was being honest when he says that he only trains when he's booked to a fight?" I throw it to you because you've been a part of some of these interviews that we've had with Gane and Team Gane.
Yeah, and I think he is honest in saying that. But his coach came out and kind of clarified that. He said that was sort of the past. That's how he handled things. And now things are a little different. He's taking it a little bit more serious. But, you know, I think they like to throw things out there to kind of get in Jon Jones's head. Jon Jones, at the end of the day, he handles business in the cage. But you could tell that there are some things that you can say that can sometimes resonate inside of his head by the way he acts in and outside of the cage. And I think that's going to be another factor in this fight, guys. Like, he's got extreme pressure coming off a 3-year layoff, right? All this GOAT status talk. One thing that Ciryl Gane has shown before in the past is he can win a boring fight. He doesn't care if the fans are booing. He'll go out there and he'll do his thing. I don't know how Jon Jones will react to that. I think he starts hearing some boos. I think he's going to come out there and maybe be a little too aggressive and fall into Ciryl's hands. So another factor to just kind of look out for in that fight.
Matthew Franco in the chat says he trains every day. He's not buying it. JD Reality YT says, is Ciryl as big of a threat to Jon as the media is making it seem to be? He actually thinks Jones takes him down easily. TKO within 3 rounds. Ooh. I think
it's a bold prediction right there. It's possible, though. It is possible. I do. You know, one other wrinkle to this whole thing, I do think it's actually kind of interesting how we look back at earlier, like John's earlier career. You know, he said he didn't train for Gus. He said he didn't train for DC, or he was out partying before DC. And now you got your first heavyweight competitor saying he hadn't been training. Like, whether that's true or not, it's just kind of a fun little
the
wrinkle.
laziest, most talented fighters on the roster.
Exactly, right?